today. Welcome back. Do you know that this is, yes, you do know that this is, today is hump day. Today is the day where we get over the hump for this week. And when we get over the hump, on the other side of the hump will be Thursday, May 15th, 2025. Do you realize, it didn't hit me till this morning, that we are soon to be at the halfway point of the month of May. May has gone quickly, and so has the year. And I'm glad you're here. I'm excited about what I have to share with you today, so let me get busy. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for adjusting your schedules to this new configuration. This is the 10 Commandments of Leadership. This will now become, it has become, as of yesterday, we debuted, it has become a daily, weekday podcast of the 10 Commandments of Leadership. What we are doing with this segment is we are, as we had been doing before, we are now, how should I say it? The objectives are the same. The objectives are the same. Our job here on the 10 Commandments of Leadership is to educate, to equip, and to empower emerging leaders with God thought leadership, to empower, equip, and educate. Also, we have as our goal is to present current events and newsmakers in the light of biblical best practices. And so we're glad that you're here with us. As a matter of fact, today, as you will know, this is the Wednesday episode of the 10 Commandments of Leadership. This is where we equip emerging leaders with spiritual clarity and strategic growth, one step, one 10 commandment at a time. Again, I'm Tim Alston. I'm a leadership strategist. I'm your host, and I also am a recovering egoholic. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting ahead of myself even for next week. You know, today we continue our journey through the 11-step A Silver Path Leadership Framework, and we're focusing today on the letter T, and T is for teachable. T is for teachable. And our anchor text this afternoon comes from Luke 11:1. Lord, teach us to pray. Let me say that again. Lord, teach us to pray. Not Lord, impress us, not Lord, use us, but Lord, teach us. Because a teachable spirit, the willingness to learn and to unlearn and to relearn, is a non-negotiable for any leader who wants to emerge. But let me pause. Let's pause here. Let me give you a little backdrop of this text. Lord, teach us to pray. Actually, let me jump ahead and tell you that Christianity is the world's largest religion. 2.17 billion people in the world identify as Christians. But how did it get that way? Well, let me now take you back to the shores of Galilee. Christianity, where 1 out of every 3 persons in the world is a Christian, wasn't launched by scholars. It wasn't launched by the elite. It was launched by fishermen. Yes, these silver medal leaders were shaped by the gold standard of silver medal leaders, and that was Jesus Christ. Now, according to the Bible records, Jesus had been watching these men for some time. Now, we don't know exactly how long he'd been watching them, but it was not some quick or impulsive decision to choose these men. In fact, the Bible records that Jesus had prayed all night long to the Father to help him to choose the right persons upon which to build this concept and this lifestyle called Christianity. The fact that he had been watching them for a while, I guess in today's language, we would say that he was vetting them if they made their living, and if they made their living as seasoned and professional fishermen, then they were used to catching many fish and doing so all the time. But this scenario, this morning, was very, very different. Jesus found them after an unsuccessful night at sea. They were not just discouraged. These men were defeated. You see, fishing was not some weekend hobby. This was their bread and butter. This was their livelihood. This is how they fed their families. This is how they paid their rent or their mortgage or whatever the case may be. But Jesus said to these seasoned fishermen. Cast your net on the other side. Now, stop and think about it. Can you imagine this? Jesus, the carpenter, was instructing these fishermen how they should catch fish. But since they had been totally unsuccessful earlier, they probably figured, what do we have to lose? We'll listen to this guy. I've seen him, we've heard him talk. Maybe he has something to offer. As a matter of fact, Simon Peter spoke to him and said, Lord, we have fished all night and caught nothing, but at your command, we'll do it. And they did. And you know the story. Their nets, once emptied and in need of mending, began to become overflowing, too much to contain the blessing that they had. Why was this? It's our first 10 commandment. Because their blessing didn't come from what these disciples knew. It came from what they were willing to learn. The blessing didn't come from what these disciples already knew. It came from what they were willing to learn. So, one of the key takeaways from this experience is this. Oftentimes, the best way to teach and learn a valuable lesson is when you feel that you have nothing more that you can lose. A good friend of mine, Jeff Thomas, back in Newport News, Virginia, once shared this quotation with me, and it stuck with me. He said, just when as a Christian you are down to nothing, please know that our God is up to something. Say that again. Just when as a Christian you are down to nothing, know that our God is up to something. Now, what does that quotation mean relative to the unsuccessful fisherman with Jesus? I suspect that in his vetting them, in his paying attention to them, Jesus had watched them successfully catching fish, successfully having an abundance of fish to take home for their families for food, to share with neighbors, to sell regularly. But Jesus waited until their nets were empty after having fished all night long. And as the Bible records, he was watching them and spoke to them and approached them when they were mending their nets. Sometimes, a lot of times, when we are mending our nets, when we have caught nothing, when we've been unsuccessful, that's when we are most receptive to learning, most receptive to being taught. Can I be transparent with you? Can I be really fully naked with you? I had one of those empty fishing net moments just like that. It was back in 2002. I was a brand new entrepreneur, and I had landed my first major consulting contract with an IT firm. But here's the irony. I'm not a tech guy. I know little to nothing about technology, but my ego said, fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it. Take the contract. Go at it. Guess what happened? In 6 weeks, I was fired. In 6 weeks, I was fired. And in my exit interview, the client told me, Tim, you needed help. We knew it and you knew it, but you wouldn't ask for any help. Firing you is one of the best things that can happen to you as an early stage entrepreneur, because talent is not your problem. Well, if talent wasn't my problem, then what was my problem? You see, they could have taught me IT, but I wasn't willing to be taught. My ego instead was running the meetings. But that failure, fortunately, that failure was not the end. It was my classroom. It was the beginning. There is an old Oriental proverb that states, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Well, just weeks after that firing, I found myself in Dallas, Texas, and sitting across from Mrs. Wanell Teague. She was a professional speaking coach, and she had just authored the book entitled The Zig Ziglar Difference. And for those of you who may not know, Zig Ziglar was arguably the most popular and successful motivational speaker of the 20th century, hands down. As Juanelle and I were trying to pinpoint and develop a professional speaking theme for me, she said, Tim, you are so articulate, you're so charismatic, and you have such a physical commanding persona. And I replied, half joking, half of confessing, yeah, everyone tells me that, and they've told me that all of my life, and they've let me slide and get away with it all of my life. That is, until I got married. And in that moment, words came to me that I know did not come from me. As they say, flesh and blood did not reveal those words. When I said, I guess I'm just a recovering egoholic. That statement stopped the meeting. It stopped the conversation, but fortunately it did not stop the cassette tape recorder. Juanelle turned to me and said, Tim, listen to me. Hear me out. Tim, I have heard every kind of speech there is to hear, but there is no one, and I mean no one, that is talking about egos. That's your message. Run with it. That moment of admitting my weakness, that became the birth of my egoholism recovering message. So now let me give you a quick leadership tool, a quick Tim commandment right here. Your leadership weakness, take it to the top. Take it to the TOP. T, target the problem. O, own the problem. And P, proceed to action. No more blaming. Once you admit that what you don't know, that's where the teaching begins. Let me say that again. Once you admit what you don't know, that's where the teaching begins. In fact, let me take that one step further. I once read a piece of research presented by a Christian author, D. Stuart Briscoe, that stated that the 5 most difficult statements for modern men to make are, I don't know, I was wrong, I need help, I'm afraid, I am sorry. Let me say that again. The 5 most difficult statements for a modern man to make is, I don't know, I was wrong, I need help, I'm afraid, I am sorry. Brothers, once we know and we can admit any of those 5 statements, for us, that's where the teaching begins. You got it, brothers? Once we can admit any one of those 5 statements, that's where the teaching begins. Now let's look at it from history from another standpoint. In the year 2000, University of Chicago law professor Barack Obama was defeated badly by Bobby Rush in a congressional race. I read this quotation recently. Trouble never comes to someone without bringing a nugget of gold in its hands. That defeat for Barack Obama, that was his empty fishing net moment. But from that failure, he noticed something. He traced back and began to notice that quiet consistency of small but systematic giving patterns in black churches on the south side of Chicago. That little small observation, made as part of his weakness, became his national fundraising strategy in 2008, which led to his record-breaking $786 million presidential fundraising campaign. Defeat taught him what experience could not. Later, as we learned last year, Ms. Kamala Harris would do something very similar. She raised $1.7 billion in 2024 by listening and learning from unheard donor voices. Now, let me take you back to the Bible for a lesson. It's a lesson you probably are very familiar with. It's a story of a young boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish. Now, trust me, he was not the only person at that event with a lunch, but he shared what little he had. And Jesus used that little he had and fed roughly 20,000 people with 12 baskets left over. Why? Because when you share what you know and share what you have, it multiplies. And then there's Barbara Bush. Remember Barbara Bush? In 1988, when asked to create a campaign platform, she had no speech ready, but she had something better. She had a teachable spirit. She stood before educators in Wisconsin, for example, and asked them, what should the Bush administration prioritize in education? Well, you can imagine what these educators, as subject matter experts in education, shared with Barbara Bush. They were all too happy to share because she took the microphone away from herself and turned it on them. The future First Lady didn't talk, she listened. And because she listened, she led. So I ask you as emerging leaders, what, from all that I've shared earlier, what broken fishing net are you mending right now? What empty boat experience is humbling you into teachability? And most of all, who are you sharing your 5 loaves and 2 fish with? Jesus taught because his disciples asked. Juan L. Teague in Dallas taught me because I confessed. Barbara Bush learned because she listened, and Barack Obama won because he watched. What about you? You will emerge. Why? Because you're teachable. I mean, I once heard Charlie Chan say to his number one son in a movie, the mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's open. The mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's open. I'm Tim Alston, and this has been the Tim Commandments of Leadership. Thank you for joining me today. And remember, a teachable spirit is the crown jewel of every emerging leader. A teachable spirit is the crown jewel of every emerging leader. Thank you so much for being with us. I hope you've had fun. This has been a ball talking with you today, and I enjoyed the feedback that you send me in my emails. Matter of fact, if you want to email me directly, you can email me at info@timalston.com. That's info@timalston.com. And once again, if what I've said to you is meaningful, informational, inspirational, and encouraging, then please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And finally, I'll leave you with the words again from the American Episcopal clergyman and author, Philip Brooks. He said, don't ask for an easier life. Ask to be a better, stronger person. Don't ask for task equal to your power. Instead, ask for power equal to your task. And then when the work is done, the work will not be the miracle. You will be the miracle. Thanks for joining us. Join us tomorrow. Join us tomorrow for the Thursday edition of the 10 Commandments of Leadership, where we'll talk about one of the most basic but yet most underrepresented elements in leadership, particularly in the corporate workplace, and that is the element of humility. Okay? Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Please share. Next time, invite a friend. Thanks. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.